These next two guests, I think of them almost like ordinary radicals. They're just down to earth, beautiful people that I feel privileged to have met about a year ago. I remember Jill and David Hines when we sat around a table in a tent in Scotland and just talked about the vision for Jesus Collective and what he's doing where you are and around the world. And we've just got to know each other better since then. Jill and David are in Belfast in Northern Ireland in the UK. I'm not even sure what you'd refer to yourselves as. You're pioneer mission leaders with the Methodist Church, extended family friends of ours in this movement. You've been all around the world. You've spent time in India as missionaries. You come back into Northern Ireland, into this setting, in what I've heard you refer to as the Bible Belt of Europe, the Bible Belt of the UK. You're getting your feet wet in a new mission, and then we get dealt this hand of cards, this COVID-19 pandemic. Help us understand, what is this Jesus-centered Reformation looking like where you are in the world right now, and how has COVID-19 impacted that? Would love to just hear you give us some context.
Hi, Matt. It's lovely to greet you all, the whole wider movement. We loved yesterday, and it's so exciting to be part of such a great bunch of people. It's a wonderful privilege. I can't help but I keep thinking of the story of Jesus calming the storm, and the disciples are out on the boat. They're doing what they know best, which is, moving a fishing boat from A to B. And then suddenly this storm hits and they're getting overwhelmed. Literally more water's coming in than they can bail out. And they start panicking. And it's only then that they realize that they've got Jesus in their boat. And so they wake him up, and then Jesus calms the storm. They are astounded at the power and the glory, and slightly terrified of the power that they are traveling with. And then they land on the other side, and Jesus starts to set the captives free, and cast out demons. And I just sort of think at the moment, as churches in the West, obviously we're more insulated from the immediate effects, the economic effects of COVID-19 than our brothers in the global South. But I think as far as the churches go, a lot of us, the churches haven't really been working as well as they should anyway. And I think in one sense, it exposes our fault lines. Who amongst us personally hasn't yelled at the kids or rage cleaned the kitchen or sort of locked ourselves in the bathroom and not come out? We're all struggling. And I think as institutions, we're struggling. And there was that 1 or 2 weeks where we all suddenly decided we don't need to meet in church on Sunday and we have to go online, and everyone started panicking. But I think it has thrown in this new dependence, this awareness that in ourselves we're not enough. And I think potentially, personally and structurally, and I think potentially there's a massive opportunity for change here as well. Not only is there a corrective that says, your structures of thought or buildings or personality, that's not enough, but there's an opportunity, like we mentioned earlier, for change, in the sense that if we can scrap Sunday, then almost anything's on the cards. And there was a time you could only make incremental changes, especially in the more traditional churches. But I think the time is coming now for boldness, where my hope is that we can, Jesus will calm this storm, and we'll be in a position then to set the captives free and really make an impact on a society that really what we have at this time. Do we have Jesus in our boat? If we don't, then we're sunk, but we're probably sunk already. And if we do, then praise the Lord. Let's push on in and set the captives free.
Fantastic. So let's play armchair futurist for a little bit. What are some things that both of you would love to see for the church where you are and around the world? And maybe even what are some things that you think we might see that aren't great, that are great warning calls for us? Would love to just hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we're going to find, one of the real rises in the last few months here has been just real fear and anxiety. And I think that's something the church is really going to have to deal with when we come out of this. I think that's a role that the church can really play. There's this lovely quote by this 13th century poet, I think, that has been coming to me over and over again. And he says something about to the effect of, fear is the cheapest room in the house. I'd like to see you in better accommodation. And I think I love the idea of this construct of a house and the church being this place of hospitality, of the hospitality of Jesus that is open and spacious. And we're able to invite people in and say, this is the lockdown. You've been dwelling in this fear of darkness and stifling air, but actually come into the openness of Jesus. Let us show you actually the hospitality of Jesus. And then through that, be able to really give them a really incredible experience of the Lord, and I think yesterday with Ken was so amazing. I think it was such a special time, and I think things like that are really important. Our church at the moment has been running these centering prayer actually and meditation things on Zoom, which is a bit strange, but we've been doing that and with non-Christians, with people from a community choir that we meet with, and that's been such a lifeline for so many. And I think stuff like that, where the church can open up the doors and say, hey, this is what we have to offer. We have this amazing, spacious place to live in that is beautiful and full of Jesus. Come in. And I think it's going to be a real opportunity for us to really do a lot more than when we were before,
Yeah. And my hope as well is that this will be a humbling thing for all of us, and it will lead to greater formation in the church. As we all have been humbled by this experience and then made more aware of our dependence on one another, there's a sense in which we're pushing more into the authenticity of what a Christian looks like. What Jesus, imagine if we were all little Jesuses. Then I think the world could do with some of that right now. The world could do with some of the power and the compassion of Christ right now. And I think we're coming into this place where people are going to be very open. People already are very open. If we have something life-giving to offer, then that's going to be really welcomed.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you paint that kind of contrast, David, the implied contrast between the kingdom of the world calling us into greater strength, the kingdom of Jesus calling us into recognition of our weakness, essentially, and our frailty, right? It's beautiful. And I remember words that you said to me before. You see this as an opportunity to restore Jesus at his rightful place at the center of everything. I know that's one of your hopes, too. That's awesome. So, real quick, what are some things we can just be praying about for you? One or two things. We'd love to add that to the list.
Yeah, always in Northern Ireland, I think peace and reconciliation and unity amongst the churches is the biggest thing. And I think, again, this is such an opportunity for churches to be able to come together in a land that we've been so separated for so long. So for the idea of peace churches coming out and saying we can do this together is a really important thing for us.
Again, I mean, the chance for the church to lead society into shalom, and that's economic, that's into community. The UK's been in a lot of division over the last few years, and this won't be the only crisis we all face over the next 10 years. There's all sorts of crises looming, environmental crisis, political crisis, and if we as a church can be equipped to offer this Jesus-centered third way, this compassionate, engaged, sort of friends to all, enemies of none, trusting Jesus, and then having that power that can set the captives free. That is our heart for Northern Ireland, and for the UK, and for all of us as a global community. If we press into Jesus and hold on to him in a real way, in a tangible way that people can see. That's what we're looking to be faithful to what he's calling us to. That's our prayer. And we feel ill-equipped, but we're clinging to Jesus.
Well, thank you so much. I love every time we get a chance to talk with you guys. Thank you for, quite literally, just dedicating your whole lives to Jesus. And I mean that quite sincerely. It's an inspiration to me to have met you and to be just journeying with you now. So thanks so much and for your time today. We hope you enjoy the rest of the time with us.
Thank you, Matt.